Let's go. John Roberts.
Sean, does the White House believe that Lieutenant General Michael Flynn broke any laws in filling out his standard form 86 disclosure? And furthermore, why is the White House apparently stonewalling the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform on its request for some of the documents that should be in the White House's possession on Mr. Flynn?
I will correct you on that. The committee sent a form letter to several agencies, including the White House, asking to find those documents. The documents in question, the Department of Defense possessed and sent over to him. The documents that occurred before he worked here would be up to him to turn over. So my understanding is the committee has the documents that they were looking for.
In the letter that Mark Short, and I know that SF-86 was referred to the DIA. And
it wasn't just referred to him, that's where it's held.
Well, I know, but they were referred to the DIA for the SF-86, and apparently they have gained access to that document. But there are other documents that should be in the White House's possession that Mark Short, in the letter to the committee, said the White House can't provide because of sensitive nature. Also said that there were no documents that were available prior to the 20th.
Right.
But I also asked the question, does the White House believe that Lieutenant General Flynn might have broken the law when he filled out SF-86?
I don't. That would be a question for him and a law enforcement agency, whether or not he filled. I don't know what he filled out and what he did or did not do. That all happened. He filled that form out prior to coming here, and so it would be up to the committee and other authorities to look at that. I don't know, but with respect to the letter, they asked for three things. The SF-86, which you properly point out was in the possession of the DIA. My understanding through reports is that they have obtained that. Then they asked for documents prior to January 20th. As you know through the Constitution, we didn't assume the White House until January 20th at noon, so we don't have the documents prior to assuming the White House. And then the third would be they listed for every call and contact that he made, which is an extraordinary number. That's a very that's a very unwieldy request.
So was it the sheer volume of it, or was
well, I mean, it's to say we want the National Security Advisor, whose job it is to talk with foreign counterparts on a daily basis to document every call that he may or may not have made, is not exactly a request that's able to be filled. But every document that they asked for, my understanding is that they've gotten.
Sean, is it your position that during the transition, the Trump transition has no custodial possession of any of these documents?
Well, I would again,
that Flynn filled out as part of the process to become the president's national security advisor. I mean, you seem to be suggesting there's an arm's length relationship.
No,
because transition.
Right. Thanks. There's two issues. He had an SF-86, which is a security clearance form that was filled out during the Obama administration. He had a investigation in 2016 that was done under the last administration. And again, those are not documents that the White House would ever possess on any employee. They would come from the requesting authority.
Okay, so
and so in that case, again, remember they sent out a form letter to I think 5 or 6 agencies requesting the same documents. The place where the documents that they had questioned did fulfill that request.
Right, and I'm just trying to find out from your perspective, is there no obligation, either the transition or the White House, to do anything more than you have done or has been done in this matter?
Everything that the White House has been asked to do, we have made that the only documents that were made available to them that they asked for were the ones that the Department of Defense had.
And how about these calls made when he was working during the transition on behalf of a future President Trump? Aren't those things that you should have some either responsibility or obligation to provide if you can?
Well, I think again, it's a question is if you can. When you ask for every call, no, but I think that's a pretty. There is, I mean, that to ask for every call or contact that a national security advisor made is pretty outlandish, if you will. To say that we want to have a list of everything that there is no.
But theoretically,
but again,
those calls were made on behalf of the Trump transition, were they not?
When?
When he was in the, I mean, this.
Look,
this
Major, he did not. We started this administration on January 20th.
Right.
All the information that they're talking about occurred prior to him being at the White House.
Right, but
so
working for the transition. And
okay,
I'm just saying, is there any obligation you have?
Not at the White House. Everything that is being questioned occurred prior to January 20th.
But you actually were the delivery of those documents?
But you're acting as if you had no custodial or ethical responsibility of your own transition. That's all I'm trying to do.
No, and I guess the question is that what...
He was not making calls as a private citizen. He was making it as a future national security advisor.
I understand that. And right now, to ask the White House to produce documents that were not in the possession of the White House is ridiculous.
But
I got Caitlin.
Does the White House consider Mike Flynn's payment from Russia today to be a payment from a foreign government?
I don't know. That was, again, all of that occurred prior to his service.
Your White House, does this White House consider a payment from Russia today to be a payment from a foreign government?
I understand. What I'm saying is everything that he did was prior to coming to this White House. So for us to determine someone else's thing as a consultant.
Today, do you consider that to be a payment from a foreign government?
I'm sorry, if what?
If someone took money from Russia today.
If they were an employee of the White House, absolutely. But I mean, again, I don't know the exact circumstances. Everything that is being discussed occurred prior to his employment at the White House, occurred as a consultant. And so whatever he did, as long as he did it in compliance with the law, as every one of us as a citizen has the right to do, that's up to an individual to do and then comply with the law.
To follow up on that, why wasn't he more closely vetted during the transition period?
Well, again, you fill out forms, and
I feel like the White House and the Trump transition team should have known about this before they were having him come to the White House.
Well, again, you fill out the forms, you do an investigation, you do a background check. Every employee gets that background check done, and they have a security clearance, and they fill it out, and that's how everyone operates under the same guise.
I have two questions, but I want to follow up on that. So you're saying that it's a problem with the process of vetting, the vetting process, and not
No,
that
I'm just saying
your,
I'm not saying it's a process with the vetting. I'm saying that every single person who comes to work in here at a certain level is required to fill out the same form, an SF-86, and that background check is adjudicated. You rely on that person when they sign their name, and then investigators to pick it up. But there's always going to be in the case of people who had a prior clearance, that between the time that they filled it out and had it adjudicated, they could have engaged in something, and whether or not they updated that or not is always the onus is on the individual.
Right. I do want to ask you really quickly about the wall. Yesterday, President Trump reportedly said that he's going to delay pushing the wall through.
Yeah, he did not.
And so can you just clarify what the status of that is? Is it
Yeah.
happening when?
Thank you. The president made it very clear, I think he tweeted about this earlier, his priorities have not changed. There will be a wall built. It's important to prevent human trafficking, gangs like MS-13 from coming into the country, the flow of illegal drugs, illegal immigration. There is a national and economic safety issue by having a wall that ensures our country's safety. And there's plenty of planning that can be done in FY17. We're going to continue. Our priorities are clear going into FY17, the remainder of budgeting for that, and we'll continue to ask for more in FY18.
So it's delayed for now?
No, I didn't. No. I never. No one said delayed. No. There's a No. There's two budget processes. Right now, we're going to end FY17 this week. We hope to continue to get funding in that, as the president laid out, for both border security and homeland security and national defense, as we've always maintained. And then when we come to FY18, that starts at the end of or beginning of October, the end of September, in that next budget, we'll go for the next group of money.
So
but
you expect partial funding?
I think we're going to we've made our priorities very clear as we continue to negotiate, and I think nothing has changed on the president's priorities. Sure, one more.
The president has threatened to withhold cost-sharing payments from insurance companies. So is that still the case?
He hasn't. I think we've made it very clear that we want to repeal and replace Obamacare, and I think we continue to see there's a prop up right now, and that's why we need to act as soon as possible to get an insurance plan in place, a new insurance plan system in place that will protect people's insurance and not have these skyrocketing costs. But we have an artificially propped up insurance system right now because of these payments, and I think that we've got to make sure that we do everything we can as quick as we can to put a system in place that will solve that. Jonathan.
Just to follow up on the two big topics, the wall and on Flynn. First, on the wall, just want to be clear. So is the president no longer insisting that there is money for the wall in this current appropriations bill?
The president's priorities are clear for FY17. There's a lot of things that we can do in the remaining months up until the end of September for planning and making sure that we get everything that we need, funding that we need for that aspect of things. And then as we go into FY18, we'll continue to ask for more. I don't think anything's changed.
So the president is not insisting that he has money for actual construction of the wall?
Look, I'm not going to get, we're still in discussions with the House and Senate leadership, but I think the president's been very clear that he wants a wall. He wants it done as soon as we can do it. There are things that we need to do to protect our country, like human trafficking, the flow of illegal drugs and gangs, that are going to make sure that while we've achieved a significant drop in illegal alien border crossing, down 61% since January, that this is something that's in our country's long-term national security security interest.
The actual construction can wait until the fall.
No, it's not a question of wait until the fall. I think there's a lot of things that have to happen. It's like any construction.
you can start
Well, you've got to
construction.
start doing some planning and things, and so we will take the first steps now, and then we will continue to seek funding through the FY18 and further budget to make sure that the actual it is completed.
And on Michael Flynn, does the president feel that he was misled by General Flynn?
I think the president made a decision a while ago because General Flynn was not straight with the vice president at the time and let him go. I think he stands by that decision, and it's up to others to review all this information that's coming out.
But does he now feel that he also wasn't straight with him?
I don't know.
During
A lot of the
transition?
facts are still coming out, Jonathan. So I know the president made a decision a couple months ago. It was the right decision, and we've moved on, and we've continued to stay focused on.
At the time he made that decision, he said that Flynn was the victim of a media witch hunt, and said he was a good man that had been a victim of
Right.
this
So
witch hunt.
let's
Does he still feel
I think
that,
all
or
the
is that-
facts are still coming out on that. Let's see where they come. I think he made a decision a few months ago. He stands by that decision. Jessica.
So on North Korea, Sean, if you could just talk a little bit more about the overall efforts that the administration is making. We note the United Nations meetings yesterday. Now you've got an up-and-coming meeting with Congress. Are you, as an administration, trying to get a coalition together to build a stronger diplomatic case around actions against Pyongyang?
Yeah, well, I think you saw Ambassador Haley yesterday in the discussion that the other ambassadors who visited the White House engaged in a very robust discussion with respect to North Korea, both as a group and then with the president. So obviously, the more that we can solve this diplomatically and continue to apply pressure on China and other countries to use the political and economic tools that they have to achieve a goal in stabilization in the region, but also to tamp down the threat that North Korea faces, I think that is something that we all share.
How would you characterize the administration's overall strategy on the DPRK?
I think it's ongoing, and I think we've seen very positive signs with respect to a nation like China. I think the relationship the president built with President Xi down in Mar-a-Lago is definitely paying off dividends. And this president's relationships that he's building with heads of government is clearly reestablishing America's place in the world and getting results for the country. Kayla.
Will you articulate that strategy on Wednesday when you have the meeting of the senators?
I'm sorry?
Will you be able to articulate that strategy and put a finer point on it for the senators?
Just to be
have
clear,
questions?
that meeting is a Senate meeting led by Leader McConnell, just utilizing our space. So that is their meeting. So we're not there to talk strategy. They are going to be briefed by the. Can I answer the question? Major, you want to come on up? I'm just listening. I mean, I understand there are 4 brief. Hold on.
Characterize it as you presenting your strategy to the U.S.
There are
Senate?
4 briefers that are coming up to talk about the situation in North Korea. They will be briefed by. This is a Senate-led meeting that they are getting. Those 4 briefers will share to them the current situation in North Korea. Kayla.
Strategy to be articulated, though?
Huh?
So the senator should not expect.
Well,
to
no,
hear your
obviously the
strategy.
Secretary of State and others are going to talk about our posture and the activities that we're undergoing, and Chairman Dunford will lay out some of the military actions and the way that they see the lay of the land. I mean, they're going to answer questions as they routinely do on a situation like this.